शरणं मम
श्रीकृष्ण शरणं मम श्रीकृष्ण शरणं मम
शरणं मम
शरणं मम
शरणं मम
शरणं
शरणं
मम
मम
शरणं मम
शरणं मम
शरणं मम
बोलिए श्री कृष्णचंद्र भगवान की
जय।
सद्गुरुनाथ महाराज की
जय।
कृष्ण मुरारी जय कृष्ण मुरारी
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 मुरलीधर पीतांबर धारी
मुरलीधर पीतांबर धारी
मुरलीधर पीतांबर धारी
मुरलीधर पीतांबर धारी
माई मीरा प्रभु गिरिधारी
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 कृष्ण मुरारी जय कृष्ण मुरारी
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 वृंदावन गोवर्धन धारी
वृंदावन गोवर्धन धारी
वृंदावन गोवर्धन धारी
वृंदावन गोवर्धन धारी
सूरदास के हृदय विहारी
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 कृष्ण मुरारी जय कृष्ण मुरारी
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 मुरली
Hari Om everyone. I had a bit of technical glitch and it was kind of getting frustrating. Because it felt like for a moment kind of my Google account has been hacked. It was not so. So it took a while for me to figure that out and just before the class, about 5 minutes before if it starts happening, it's kind of crazy. I'm glad it is taken care of and we're good. Oof. I'm just checking myself if I'm sweating. Okay. Hope you're all doing well, and good to see all of you. And that was quite a scare. Let's begin with the invocation and then get into our questions. Hope you're all ready. I am excited to see your questions, as always. So let's begin with the invocation. Please join me. ॐ सहनाववतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यङ्करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै ॐ शान्तिः 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 गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णुः गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरुरेव परं ब्रह्मा तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः So we have about 20 questions, all mandatory. I'm just sharing the pressure and tension that I was in 5 minutes ago to all of you. I'm glad all of you are smiling. Let's begin. Ashwin, are you in?
Yes.
Awesome. Let me put you in the spotlight. Easy question or hard question?
Hard question. First.
Awesome. Very good. And how are you?
Doing good. Is everything?
How is your brother?
He's doing well. He's doing his studies and all that. So, yeah.
Okay. So the question for you is, the advice of the scriptures is, while remaining in the world, learn to maintain the right relationship to it. If the world is to be ultimately rejected as unreal, why is it important to maintain the right relationship with it?
So I think there's two ways to think about this. One way to think about it is, even if the world is ultimately to be rejected as unreal, we are not yet at that stage where we're able to see it for what it is. So with our process of seeking, we're still doing it with our mind, with our body, we are still doing different things in the world. So in that sense, because we're still constrained by that viewpoint of duality, the best way forward is to keep maintaining the right relationship. That's what will help us transcend the world. So that's my first answer. And the second answer at a deeper level is, ultimately, you should not reject. When you say reject the world as unreal, all you're rejecting is the fact that you're just recognizing that the names and forms are temporal and are not permanent. but even the world has reality in it, right? Because everything is Brahman. So at the ultimate level, because everything is Brahman, it is completely natural to maintain the right relationship with the world around you. There is no distinction between what is real and what is unreal. So once you get to that stage also, you will be able to maintain the right relationship with the world around you.
There's only one correction that I would say. It is not that there is, sorry, it is not that the world is also there and it is also Brahman. Either we are seeing it as a world or we are seeing it as Brahman. There is no two ways about it.
Right.
So when we say rejection, it is the complete understanding that I am Brahman and it is the substratum. Therefore, the world gets rejected. If you say that the way you presented it, you said the world is also Brahman, it's not that the world is Brahman. It is that which is the substratum is Brahman. If we see it as the world, then we are seeing it other than Brahman.
Right. So when I say world, I'm only referring to whatever names and forms constitute what we think the world is. So ultimately, when you say world is Brahman, it is same as I, like it is everything.
No, it can be picked and ripped apart, because that nuance is where a lot of logicians, lot of tarka and lot of other schools of thought, it gives rise to the support of that.
Right.
Yeah. Let me see. Hari, do you want to join?
I don't have anything to add on this one, Swamiji.
Okay. So there is a couple of things that I would like to add before we move. There was a movie about a dream within a dream within a dream. Do you remember which one I'm talking about?
Inception.
Inception, right. It has that totem that keeps going round and round at the end, not knowing if it is going to fall or it is going to stay, or yeah, it is that inception. So though you understand that this is a dream and then you have to get out of it, all the laws of that particular format of existence that you're experiencing, until you get the kick out of it. If you remember that movie, until you get the kick out of it and you wake up to the reality as such, whichever level that you are in, until then, all the rules of that particular existence completely apply on you. Therefore, you cannot reject that particular world and its experience. The rejection can happen only when I am getting out of it. That perception, that experience, when I'm getting out of it, that is when it gets rejected. Again, connecting it back to what I started off with is the rejection is in understanding that I alone is the truth and I am that Brahman. So in the language of Bhagavan Sri Adi Shankaracharya ji, he says very emphatically that Nitya vastu tu ekam brahma tad vyatiriktam sarvam anityam. That there is one existential reality who we call as or recognize as Brahman, and anything other than that, that otherness that exists, that otherness is called worldliness, and that has to be rejected in the experience of me being Brahman. Okay. I gave a tough question, but it just fizzled out to be a straight short answer. Thank you. Let me now ask Hemant. Let me put you in the spotlight, please. Hari Omda, how are you? I am doing super duper. How was Diwali?
And it was very nice. Yeah.
Enjoyed?
Yeah. Loved it.
Did you make any sweets?
I did not make any sweets. I partook of others. Figured that was the easiest way for me.
Okay. Now
It's a
let me
bit harder though for me to have a lot of sweets since I became mostly vegan now. So it's a lot of things I can't really have anymore.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, but it's okay. I enjoyed the spirit of Diwali.
There are a lot of sweets that if you know how to make, you will be able to enjoy, and they are vegan. Okay. So therefore you should learn, being a vegan, how to cook,
Yeah.
inspiring you to pick a talent, a skill set. Of the 6 qualities that we discussed as 6 or 9 qualities that we discussed as the requirement, the basic sadhana, which among them do you think is the most required one? Is it Viveka Vairagya or is it Mumukshutvam? If so, whatever you pick, as to why.
Ooh. So out of the 9 qualities, I'd say that this is actually tough. The reason I think that I would say all of them is because see, it's necessary to have, for instance, that desire for mumukshutvam. It's necessary to have it in order to actually progress, right? Without desire for liberation, I don't think we're going to want to progress forward. But there are some necessities for it: control of the mind, control of the senses, having shraddha, that faith, that what we're doing is for something greater, and then having that ability to discriminate. Viveka, like all the qualities are equally important. So short answer is, I don't think that one of them is more necessary than the other. I think all of them are equally important in their own way. But so I'm not going to say that I think one of them is more important than the other.
That puts us. So you're saying you're not going to answer the question. I'm just pulling your leg.
No, I don't actually really know which one is the most important, because I think all of them are equally important.
Okay. Let's ask Divya, Brahmacharini Divya.
Hello. So the very first one I would say is the driving force for the rest, because Gurudev had mentioned in some of his introductions that there's a difference between animal man, man, and Superman, because of the type of mentality or the way the human being functions in their lifetime. So animal man is one that is unthinking, that lives according to vasanas, habits, unconsciously, psychologically following their own natural tendencies. And we see that they are not disturbed. They are not riddled with questions and doubts and uncertainties. It is only when the human being starts to examine the nature of things around them, the purpose of why we act, and such doubts and such observations start to emerge, then the sudden seeking for more, seeking for guidance, and looking to the Shastras and the relevance of Sanatana Dharma becomes relevant even at that point. So I think it was in Ishavasya Upanishad introduction, Gurudev even mentions that a materialistic man doesn't need religion. So that is why Viveka becomes the most important driving force in the very beginning, because Viveka is that thorough examination of the nature of the world and myself, the nature of the purpose of why we act, and the nature of the results that we keep hankering after. Is it real? Is it worth it? Is it stable? Is it permanent? And so on and so forth. Once that doubt starts to develop and the reality of the situation comes to us, and quote unquote reality at this point, then comes, okay, these results aren't actually fulfilling what I'm looking for, and therefore it has no value to me. Then comes vairagya, then comes all the other qualities of being samatvam in all of this encounters and experiences that we have in life. Then comes, how can I be free of all of this burden? How can I be free of all of this dukkha? Then you finally enter that stage of what is that highest I'm desperate to know. So viveka is, I would say, the driving force for all of the other qualities of an adhikara. And most of the time when we stumble on our sadhanas, it is usually because of the lack of understanding, lack of examination of why am I really doing this? What is it for? So I would say viveka.
Okay, let me pull in Hari as well.
Hari Om. I can only speak from where I am as a sadhaka, so I'd say vairagya is one that's indispensable. From the standpoint of, even if, yes, mumukshutvam, that cultivating that yearning for liberation is imperative, we must have that. But the very first step is getting away from my own deeply held notions to take this path seriously, to see that moksha is the highest goal, the only goal that I should have. So to even get to that point of understanding that, to cultivate that mumukshutvam, to follow the Vaidika Dharma Marga, first step is getting away from my own notions, not just held in this lifetime and creating patterns, but for innumerable lifetimes before. So detachment from what I think is right, me feeling that what I want to do is the right thing to do, that would be the very first step. And without that vairagya, there's no progress at all. I won't even take Shastra or my guru seriously then, if not for it.
Now, 3 different answers, okay? One said that, hey, look, all of them are important. It would not be right for me to choose one over the other. And the question itself is invalid because all are important. The second said, let's start from the basics of the basics, and it is from Viveka. Now, the last one said, from where I stand, that was the qualifying that he started with. From where I stand, vairagya is what strengthens my drive towards moksha. Therefore, I would choose vairagya. The question is very clear. The question that was asked was, which one of these sadhana chatushtaya is important? And one has to be clear, the way the thought is developed, the way the entire logic is presented. Though Hari, you have put the qualifiers saying that it is from where you stand, but it is, I would say, almost like saying you have taken the liberty to change my question paper. So your answer, though from your standpoint you're right, but the question paper cannot be changed. It's like I give a question paper, but nah, I will write my own question and I'll answer that question. So that is how I would view your answer. So the question, going back to the original aspect of the question, I think that the entire edifice of sadhana is a possibility only if we begin with viveka. Without that viveka, to try do anything else, it would be faking it, but we will never be able to make it. We will never be able to reach it. Contrary to the thought that many people say, fake it till you make it. it ain't gonna happen. Because especially in the field of sadhana, frustration will be abundantly written all over our experience. So the basic foundation stone on which this entire edifice should be built is viveka. Now, how does one gain that viveka? As Goswami Tulsidas ji puts it very beautifully in Ramcharitmanas, he says, Binu satsanga viveka na hoi. Without satsanga, there is no viveka. Now, satsangatve nissangatvam nissangatve nirmohatvam nirmohatve nischalatatvam nischalatatve jivan mukti. That is in Bhagavad Gita, Bhaja Govindam. But in satsanga, what is it that actually happens? Why do we have so much of emphasis on satsanga? Because in satsanga alone, there is the possibility of shravana, where the opportunity for the individual seeker, the opportunities open up. There is a higher standpoint and the present standpoint that I am in. Comparing and contrasting it, I come to evaluate the position that I am in. Now, once that evaluation begins, I think the seeker is set on the sadhana. That sadhana reaches a sense of meaningfulness when that viveka reaches to the point of subtlety where my questioning is verily about the existence itself. Why am I existing like this? Who am I? What am I supposed to be doing? Why am I, or anyone for that matter, be in this cycle of birth and death? When this question begins, whether you take Hastamalaka Stotra written by Hastamalaka or spontaneous outburst of Hastamalaka himself, when asked by Adi Shankaracharya ji, his teacher, Kastvam Shisho Shikuta Agatosi. So, who are you, hey Arbhaka, oh dear child? Who are you? Where are you from? Where are you going? Up until that moment that he had not opened his mouth, he suddenly starts chanting this amazing treat. And when everybody hears it, they are like, you could say the Sanskrit word is avak. Avak, they're stunned. They're like, whoa, where did this come from? This fellow, is this the fellow speaking? He has never spoken in his entire life. Since birth, he has not spoken. He has remained in silence. And such profoundness is just overflowing. So the basic question, even in Viveka Chodamani, the student asks the question. There are 7 questions. And that is where the actual sadhaka is born. Ko nama bandhak katamesha agataha. So that set of shlokas, or that set of questions, seven questions that he asks, that is where the inquiry begins, Viveka begins. Now, most popular Vishnu Sahasranama, if you look at it, there also there is Yudhishthira speaking or asking clarity from Bhishma Pitamaha, and Bhishma says, Yudhishthira asks Bhishma, there are 7 questions. Kim Japan Muchyate Jantur, that particular set of 2 slokas. There are also 7 questions. So it don't get fixated with the number 7. It is just that enquiry begins when we start enquiring into the very basis. Who am I? What the heck am I doing here? Why am I here? What should be the very purpose of my life? And that can happen only through Viveka. Wherever Viveka is well established, Vairagya will be the result, should be the result. If after all this analysis there is no Vairagya, then we probably are in an academic pursuit of understanding the words and be able to use that jargon for being a professor maybe, but not being a sadhaka. So I would say that it's not what I would say, that is what is necessary as the cornerstone, which is Viveka. So very interesting to see that I asked 3 people and all 3 gave 3 different answers. But yes, Divya, thanks for nailing it. Thank you, Hemant. Can we, yeah, somebody help me to. Okay, who should we call in now? Shivani.
హరి ఓం స్వామి
బాగున్నావమ్మా?
బాగున్నాను స్వామిజీ, మీరు ఎలా ఉన్నారు?
దేవుడి దయ వల్ల చాలా బాగున్నానమ్మా.
వచ్చింది సార్.
Doing well, thank you for asking. Easy question or difficult question?
మీ ఇష్టం స్వామిజీ.
Okay. Mumukshutvam is not an idle enthusiasm to gain an unknown goal through some mysterious intervention of God or Guru. This is what Gurudev says in the book. If I don't have a direct experience of what I'm seeking, isn't it that an unknown goal anyway?
Okay. So I think it can be intellectually understood. And I remember in one of the previous satsangas, Swamiji had given the example of a sports person and how they have this, great conviction for their goal. And even though they had not experienced the joy of winning the game yet, they still probably have this conviction because they see the results that they would get, or they see how it would feel for someone else to win it. So therefore, they have this conviction. So I think similarly, by looking up to such gurus and great masters and having firm faith in Shastra, Guru and Bhagavan, then we can cultivate such enthusiasm for the goal, even though it might not be a direct experience.
Okay. Hari Garu.
Hari Om. So that which is unknown cannot be explained but only pointed at. And if we look at Vedanta, we've seen the chapter on Vedanta and everything preceding that in Self-Unfoldment as well. We find that the rishis, in their earnest look inward, they found the way to point at that the most logical way. Done by starting where I am. The frameworks that we saw, whether it's Panchakosha Viveka, Avasthatreya Viveka, all of these, they're not something esoteric that's hard to understand because I don't experience it. All of these are experienced by us. We just have to look at it to consider the framework. So if Shastra is so correct and the gurus are so precise at this level, step by step, holding our hand, taking us along the way, that builds that shraddha, that even when they point at that which is unknown, it's not something that's so far off. If they've been right about everything leading up to that point, by logic, by going by Shruti Mata, they have to be right about that as well.
I think we have to be careful moving forward that when we say Rishi, just so that we are not mentioning or talking about Sunak, so we say that it is the Rishis of the scriptural reference. Otherwise, people might start misinterpreting or concluding that it is that we are talking about him. But coming to the point, how do I trust? My question is to Hari. How do I trust? How do I come to know if that which I am trying to follow, trying to understand, which the gurus, which the Shastra is pointing is something that I can trust. What builds that trust? How do I ensure that?
Once I'm convinced that my thought patterns and the path I've been going on for so long, countless lifetimes, that whatever happiness I've been seeking through all those patterns, that hasn't given me that permanent happiness. And when it's clearly pointed out to me that, look, every single action I've done up until this point, or every time I've thought that what my identity is, going through the layers and seeing that I've been wrong about all of that, that trust builds when I find that every single thing that's been pointed out by the Shruti Mata is exactly what I've been going through and how accurate it is about what the goal is. That trust builds when that becomes very apparent to me. There are no doubts there.
Then is it okay to say that without trust, I cannot move forward?
Without trust, I cannot move forward. Could we use the word shraddha here? Is that a stretch to change it from trust? I don't want to change. No, not change the question paper. Just asking sincerely here. Once bitten, twice shy, Swami. That's
Yes, we can change that.
Okay. So with that shraddha, then, which is not merely a blind faith or just insisting on a belief, it is that conviction that is brought on by the logic of Shruti plus the guidance of that Guru. Both of those things in tandem can not make me go wrong.
So what comes first, Shraddha or logic?
Shraddha has to come first. That even these ideas that are so foreign to my thinking, to even give them the time of day and let me ruminate on them, that needs that Shraddha, not to just dismiss them outright.
Even to say that if I am being logical in my pursuit, that Shraddha will not be built?
More of it has to be there, I'd say, if you're going through logical pursuit. Just because, one example, if I've gone my whole life with the idea that seeing is believing, what I see is the reality, and that is underlying everything. Shastra starts out by telling me, if you see anything, that means it is unreal, right? That's the logic that's given. Without that shraddha to even grasp onto that and go forward with it, there's no way I have any progress, because it's just completely outside of any line of thinking I've entertained for so long.
Okay. I would say that mumukshutva, when talking about an unknown goal, if I don't have a direct experience of what I am seeking, then there are many situations in life where I may not have the direct experience of what I'm seeking. Then what is the next best? The next best is that I follow the trail of what we call as pramana. So here pramana means the means of knowledge, the correct means of knowledge. So what are the correct means of knowledge? For most of us, it is pratyaksha pramana. Even in court of law, that is what is taken into consideration, where there is pratyaksha sakshi. Pratyaksha, the one who has seen the incident happening. If there is that kind of an evidence, then it is unbeatable presentation. But we have seen that pratyaksha pramana can many times come to a wrong conclusion. We have seen so many cases where there were evidence posted by people of having seen a certain crime or certain individual having done something, but then they, after 18 years or now that the technology is better, they compared with the samples of that day and found that the person that has been incriminated for The crime has got nothing to do with it, and what they were trying to present about their own innocence stands proven. So what happens to that fellow who has presented the entire concept, saying that no, it was this fellow that I saw? That pratyaksha has failed. Now these are some specific cases. Does this happen to us in a day-to-day experience? Yes, it does happen to us in a day-to-day experience. Pratyaksha says there is sunrise and sunset. I experience it every day. But in reality, neither the sun rises nor sun sets. What is happening is the earth revolves around itself while revolving around the sun, and this movement creates the experience for each individual as though that the sun is rising and sun is setting. That is our pratyaksha. But our evidence shows very clearly that that which is my pratyaksha is not right. The other pratyaksha pramana that can be taken into consideration is when I see the sky, I see that it is blue in color. Even when there are outside of the Earth's space, when there are the satellites that take the photo of Earth, it appears blue. But we are told that blueness is only our perception. There is not an iota of truth to it being blue. Sorry. Why is it that it appears blue? The evidence again points to the fact that the particles in the atmosphere absorb every other wavelength of the light, leaving behind the blue color, therefore it appears blue. But in reality, there is no color to that space. The reflection of it in the water bodies, depending on the depth, they reflect that bluish hue. Otherwise, water also doesn't have, the oceans also doesn't have, they don't have any color to it. So these are pratyaksha pramana. The next means that we have is called anumana pramana. Anumana pramana, inferential knowledge. I was asleep, not during the class, I'm talking as an example. I was asleep and I woke up. Then through the window I saw that the garden or that area which I am seeing is all wet. So I infer that, oh, because Dallas in the last 3-4 days, it has been pouring, as they say, cats and dogs. Continuously it has been. That the roads are also flooded. Sometimes when we drive, there is the, what do you call, hydro something, hydroplaning. Hydroplaning. So we experience that a lot. But as I get up, move to the other side of the window, and I see, oh, that is dry. That side is completely dry. And Texas, in Dallas, I have seen that on the highway, the side that I am in is completely dry. On the other side, it is raining. So now I have to go to the other side. Now my inquisitiveness is peaked. So I go out into the front of the door, check on both sides of the house. One side where it is wet, one side there is the dry, and come to the conclusion that the front of the house there is no such. Maybe somebody has watered that portion of the garden. Okay, that is how I come to the inferential aspect. The entire CSI, whichever series, whether it is Miami, whether it is LA or Las Vegas or wherever that is, what is the premise of it? That there is a crime scene, and in that crime scene they investigate with the data that is available. They're shown that they're very thorough, that the data that is available, they deduce, they come to the inference that this is what must have happened. If this is what has happened, how do we corroborate the existing evidence to build the framework to see how that crime has happened? Inferential knowledge. But inference also we fail. The Anumana Pramana is also failure. Wherever there is fire, wherever there is smoke, there has to be fire. So, where was this? There was a commotion in a hostel, and the warden wanted to check the room because wherever there is smoke, there has to be fire. So the warden thought that these students in that particular room were smoking and they were high on something, so knocked on the door because there was smoke. So he inferred the worst of the situation because there were at least 3-4 students in that room. The inference of the chapel on the outside door, it proved that there were 4 sets of I was in the opposite side room. So the commotion that the door was being banged and they all came out pretty ticked off at being disturbed, and this warden jumped in and said, "What is happening here? Why is there smoke?" It so happened that they had taken the Ayyappa Diksha where and they were having a bhajan session, and they had the dhoop sticks, and that dhoop sticks are sometimes very smoky, and that was the smoke that was being seen, but that was inferred as though it was something else. And this was a hilarious example, but there are situations where our inference fails. Our deduction fails. Then what is the next best? That is called the Shabda Pramana. And when we say Shabda Pramana, that Shabda Pramana is the Shabda Pramana or the Apta Vakya. In fact, Shabda Pramana is the gathering of all the Apta Vakyas in the form of Shruti, which points. And the best part of the Shabda Pramana, when we say follow the scripture, I would say there is no possibility of any dogma that can arise in this path, because one of the first things that the scripture or the teacher says, do not jump in to conclude anything because I am saying so. Please investigate and find that it is logical. When most of my personal jigsaw puzzle is thus being answered in a thorough logical manner, though most of my all of my questions may not have, but most of them may have been answered, that is where my Shraddha is kindled. It is lit, and through that I get introduced to the other phases where I grow to seek that which is unknown, and finally come to realize that, oh, that which I am seeking is actually my own true nature. It's my own nature that I have been seeking. And that is where it dispels the darkness that it is not an assumption, it is not a imagination, it is not a hallucination. It is the very conscious principle that which I am is what is being pointed at. So that would be the long answer to the short question that was asked. Is it clear to both?
Yes, Swamiji, thank you.
Thank you for participating. Okay, there is about 9 minutes. We have done only 3 questions. Let's pull in Karthika. कैसे हैं जी?
अच्छी हूँ स्वामी जी, आप कैसे हैं?
मैं एकदम उत्तम.
Awesome.
Two Telugu people speaking in Hindi.
Telugu కూడా మాట్లాడతాను స్వామిజీ, but very slowly.
So let me ask you a very simple, straightforward. How does satsanga help us stabilize in vairagya, in detachment?
Hmm. Yeah, that's a great question, Swamiji. I think from my own experience, I'm not negating the question here. I think in everyone's experience, um, I think satsanga, when you have that initial question towards viveka, like you're questioning, what is my purpose? Why am I here? Why am I doing things? Why do I need to do things? I think being in a group setting such as this, or through other satsanga opportunities, I think they help you answer those questions in a very systematic way, and also helps you be with like-minded people who may have similar questions as you, and see how they are seeking answers to those questions as well. And through satsanga, I think you also get a lot of motivation by seeing people, by seeing other people's sadhana and their dedication towards Vedanta, living life like what is in our scriptures. I think it motivates you, definitely motivates me to live life like that.
So you meant to say I'm not the only weird one out.
No.
There are more like me.
Yeah, it's good to be in a group setting like this.
Okay. Let's bring in Divya. Go ahead, Divya.
Hi. So satsanga is like a mirror. All the time, that whenever we come to satsanga and we hear a new line of analysis of our current state of being, it forces us to look in a mirror and reevaluate how we are living our life. So we've noticed that anytime we come to satsang, there's a light bulb moment that happens, and then we walk away and then get sucked into the worldly life again. And so it is a repetition of exposure that satsanga becomes over time. So in the beginning, it acts like a mirror. Then as the maturity grows and as that sense of vairagya develops, then the satsanga also then helps us flesh out the logic and analysis process of like going through, like, for example, the Drigdrishya Viveka, that whole process of trying to understand our three states, going through the logic of it, that we wouldn't have been able to do just by on our own. That logic has to be given, that has to be worked through, that needs to be guided by the Shastras and by a guru. So the level at which we are in our maturity, the Shastras will give us the aids at that point. So Shastra is always needed up until the very end. But to begin with, specifically for stabilizing our sense of detachment, is that satsanga behaves as a mirror for us to constantly reevaluate. And satsanga, in another term of associating with others, with like-minded people, is that they are also going through those questions as well. So their analysis of their personal experience and hearing that, discussing it, also brings a practical or day-to-day, or like, I'm going through it, you're going through it, so we are in this experience together. Let us continue to analyze as we are today, because what happened in the past, the situations in the past may not be the same for us, and yet the Shastras still apply. It's that application process that requires help of others as well. So satsanga in terms of people and satsanga in terms of the actual Vedanta that we hear over and over again as Shravana. In both cases, help us continue to analyze, which deepens our Viveka and therefore deepens our Vairagya.
Mhm.
Harigaru?
There's an instance that comes to mind, Swamiji. This was several years ago in our CHYK group here in Dallas. One student asked Swamiji the question that a group of friends and I, we discuss spiritual matters, we talk about various ways of improving, and whenever I miss one of these sessions with them, they are very insistent about me coming to the next one. They'll reach out, things like this. And his question was, Swamiji, I feel like this is peer pressure. There's peer pressure to do bad things. I feel like this is a peer pressure to do a good thing, but still pressure nonetheless. And Swamiji said, bro, this is satsang. That's what it is. That's what satsang is, all a part of it. Association with the good, but that accountability as well. And even to do the right thing, there has to be a push sometimes. Association with the good gives me that push. So that's from that angle, it's a very stabilizing factor as well. In the initial stages, at least, I need those training wheels of having that support. And why not have that support from peers as well as the guru? And that will really propel me forward.
I remember a very profound story. I don't know where I have heard this. That in a village, there was a great Mahatma, and there were a lot of people that would be drawn to this Mahatma. One young, inquisitive mind joined their satsang, but after a certain point, people get a certain experience, certain conclusion where somehow this Mahatma felt this fellow has stopped coming to the satsanga. Probably he feels that all these group mentality and all these, it's becoming too chaotic. It's not for me. I need more time, more room, more space, more breathing opportunity. I think I should avoid. I can handle it all by myself. I'll do it by myself. So this Mahatma went seeking his house, that student's house, and seeing this Mahatma at their doorstep, he invited him in, and there was a fireplace, and he said, "Can I get you a cup of chai or some?" The Mahatma said, "Okay, sure, why not?" And they had a cup of tea, and as they were sipping that cup of tea from the fireplace, he pulled out a burning coal, an ember, and put it on the rim of the fireplace. And after about 5 minutes or so, that burning charcoal now started settling down as ash on the top of it. It was no more glowing. So he looked at that student, looked at that, the ash settled charcoal, and he picked it up again and placed it back into the fire, and within seconds it started glowing back again. And he didn't say much. Probably it was those days where subtlety was appreciated both by the teacher and the student. Sometimes we have to say it out clearly and still it doesn't hit us. So in those days, with that subtlety that was offered, he walked away. He didn't say much. And then very next day, the student was back into the fold, and he went to that Mahatma and he said, "I understand that by myself, I am like that burning charcoal which has been put aside. It is that group, that environment that actually sets up the fire and keeps it going, keeps that inspiration moving forward. And I can experience that. Therefore, I am back." So I think both of them, what they have said in this story, kind of gives it a complete picture. Today it is already 8:01. I think we can conclude without Hanuman Chalisa. because we have come to that point. But thank you guys. Wish I could have gone through all the 20 questions. But once we complete this, I'll send out all the questions from each chapter so that it is a good exercise for you to go through all of them and evaluate as the personal pointers. So I'm gathering all of them, so I'll share it with all of you at the end, at the very end. So we can conclude now. Please join me in concluding. Om Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinah, Sarve Santu Niramayaः, Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu, Ma Kasyad Dukkha Bhag Bhavet, Asato Ma Sadgamaya, Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya, Mrityorma Amritangamaya. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate, Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vasishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. Take care, everyone. It was nice to hear all your answers and viewpoints. And what gives me a sense of fulfillment at these sessions is when you guys nail it down to the very answer, to the very question that has been asked, and the answer is very, very pointed towards that which is supposed to be the answer, and you're very firm about it. That gives an amazing joy to watch. Thank you. See you in the next satsang next week. Hari Om.